The Crypto Markets Update is brought to you by KuCoin, the best place to find the next crypto gem.
Big day for anything with the word Ethereum in it. And joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is our old friend, Michael Venuto. He's Chief Investment Officer at Toroso Investments. Welcome back, Michael.
Hey, good to see you.
Seeing you. So, we obviously saw the rally in ETH, but we also saw a big rally in Ethereum Classic as there's this excitement, if you will, that people are going to go into Ethereum Classic. The miners are going to go into Ethereum Classic now that they have all this extra capacity because they're not using it for ETH anymore. And that's up 26%. And we're also seeing a lot of the other layer ones up today. What's the market sentiment here? Is this sort of a short-term rally just on the basis solely on this news that Ethereum is going to go forward with its merge, or are we seeing kind of a change in overall sentiment about the future of crypto? And it might be, and the market is betting it's going to be more along the lines of Ethereum rather than Bitcoin.
You put a lot in that question there, Lawrence.
Right,
Yeah, let me unpack a little piece first. The miners, within our ETF, within Block, we own a lot of these miners, and a few of them have not only Bitcoin mining, but they have Litecoin and Ethereum. The one that's probably best known for Ethereum is Hive, and we've spoken with Frank Holmes and what he's planning to do post merge. And it's not a switch to Ethereum Classic. I'm not hearing that from the big miners. I'm hearing that, if they got extra capacity, they want to switch over to Ethereum Classic. That's probably more the small and private miners and opportunistic. It's also somewhat strangely contradictory, right there. The Ethereum is moving to a proof of stake while the Classic still has a more limited supply and a proof of work. How can you believe in both at the same time, right? It's kind of a bit of a contradiction there. So my conclusion on it, this is probably a short-term fad on Ethereum Classic. I don't think I'm not involved, and I wouldn't probably get involved here.
So what's not a short-term discussion is, of course, the inflation right now that's happening, global inflation that we're seeing. Obviously, we're going to have the CPI numbers coming out in a few days, but nonetheless, it's not been great for people who are worried about inflation. Where does Bitcoin fall in this? Because the price of Bitcoin itself has fallen from about 69,000 to under 20,000 right now, while inflation has popped up. Has the discussion of Bitcoin being that inflation hedges it over? I mean, is it really still something we can talk about, or is this, is it sort of still kind of a fantasy, if you will, that's being peddled by the maxis?
Yeah. So most of us have never dealt with inflation. Most of us in the world of investing today, right?
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm that much younger. But I like to define inflation for Main Street, right? We have these Wall Street definitions, which is CPI, which is a 3-month look back at how things looked 3 months ago, and they adjust it every 2 weeks. So I think of CPI as kind of a fake number. However, real inflation comes from two sources, right? So we have source number one, increasing price of goods, usually comes from supply chain shocks, a war, all the fun things that we've dealt with from pandemic and Putin and all of that stuff. The other form of inflation comes from debasement of currency, which we had for the first pretty much since 2008 until about 6 months ago. And that's the period where something with a limited supply like Bitcoin works as an inflation hedge. So I'm a big believer that there's those two forms of inflation have to be fought. But when our government, which today it's very hawkish, they're pulling money out of the system, that is not going to work to Bitcoin's benefit, right? You're pulling liquidity. That's going to slow down the adoption. That's going to slow down the speculation. It's going to slow down the use in all kinds of places. So I do believe you'll see Bitcoin act again as an inflation hedge, but to the type of inflation of currency debasement, not supply chain shocks.
Michael, I want to rewind a bit and touch on Ethereum again, but do you think Ethereum is undervalued right now? And two, are you planning to separate your coins, or, because with this merge, we could possibly see this Ethereum proof of work chain, ETHW chain arise. And if you were to acquire those coins, would you just kind of ignore them, or would you just try to dump them or keep them?
Sure. So I like to think of Bitcoin as digital gold, right? That narrative, I believe, is still exists. And that goes back to Lawrence's inflation question. Whereas Ethereum, I like to think of as digital oil, right? You need it to power the system. You need it to create your NFT. We did this great piece where we created ETF nerd NFTs and taught people in traditional finance how to use ETH to actually do something that, Bitcoin's decades away from doing anything other than transferring value. So I'm a big believer, if the proof of stake works, which, I think there's a lot of good evidence that it can, staking your coins makes a lot of sense, right? Like it's yield farming without trusted third parties on the other side that are going to steal from you. That sounds pretty attractive to me. So I hope.
So do you
it
think
works.
It's undervalued?
Yeah.
Do you think it's undervalued right now? And two, what are you going to do with the ETHW? Are you going to dump it, or are you going to just ignore it?
I'm going to say I don't know to both of those questions. I've always had trouble. I've always had trouble valuing ETH. I have plenty of ETH, but I do it to do things and to learn things. I do my buy and learn, right? NFTs or various different projects. It's the oil in the blockchain car. Whether or not it's undervalued or overvalued, I don't know, and I wouldn't dump any fork ever. You want to hold these things and learn from them.
So speaking of oil, you are bullish on crypto you see a crypto spring happening. What gives you that indication that that's the case?
I think that if we go back to the statements about easing monetary supply, I don't think that can go on much longer. Maybe October, the Fed's done after that. You add to that the wall of worry that we have climbed this summer is unbelievable, and we're still here. And all kinds of good things are happening. Every day I'm talking to more and more entrepreneurs in this space who, they got their funding before the winter started, and they've been building all the way through it, and they're quietly developing amazing things. And then all the headlines are about the bigger companies laying off people. Guess where those people are going? They're going to these smaller ones that are actually well-funded and doing things. So I think the fact that we survived a wall of worry during a winter, and we've got the Fed having to start to slow down. The housing market is cracking inflation before the Fed manages to do it. So I do think that we're not in a prolonged, another 18 months of waking up and going, oh, not again, So this Ethereum merge, it's exciting news. Try and get this many people together to make a decision. Congratulations.